most precious multi-billionaires. We're very privileged indeed to have in front of us today Ms. Siddharthia Pillay, who is really an exceptional, brilliant academic. She's actually world-renowned. And we have her wonderful, significant other, Devendran Govender. And so I just want to ask Siddharthia to give us some background about herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Siddharthia Pillay. I am a PhD student at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I'm studying a PhD in Management of Innovation. I am also a children's book author, and I also have a poetry anthology entitled Immaterial Reflections. I'm also a Bharatanatyam dancer and Bharatanatyam teacher. And I've been interested in writing, dancing, the creative arts my entire life, but I'm also interested in issues of social justice and humanitarian affairs as well.
Fantastic. So tell us a bit about your books that you've written here.
Sure. So my first book is entitled The Thoughtful Tales of Baby Brown Bear. It has four stories about the adventures of baby brown bear and her friends. And it's really about encouraging children to read, to use their imagination, and to also learn something about how to be better human beings to each other and to the world. And I continue this in the second book of the series, Baby Brown Bear and the Little Lights, which is about engaging with elderly people and also engaging with those who are less fortunate than yourselves. And then my third book is my poetry anthology, Immaterial Reflections, which discusses or explores the theme of love, but love more in terms of how it teaches us about ourselves, how it teaches us humility, and how it teaches us to also rise and enter into the divine or the greater source that we come from. So these are my three books, and we also do personalized books for clients who commission this work.
That's awesome work.
Thank you.
So there is an education crisis in the country. In the Pearl study, we realized that the grade 4 learners couldn't read for meaning in all 11 official languages. What are some of your suggestions for children to improve their reading and writing skills?
I think it's a big responsibility to put on the child. For me, it really came from my upbringing. If my father wasn't reading stories to me or creating stories from scratch, then it was my grandmother who was teaching me how to read and write. And I think that is fundamental. She also read me stories. Both my grandmothers read me stories when I was a child. And that is fundamental because I grew up from a very young age wanting to read, wanting to learn. And I think that's where it really starts. By the time children get to school, it's often too late. Their interests are now diverted to TV and the cell phone, which can be educational, but often is just overstimulating and just very loud and colorful. So I think that it really falls on the family and the environment of that child from a very young age to stimulate them with reading and books.
So it warms my heart to hear you speak about your dad, because your dad was also my lecturer. And could you say a bit more about him and how he influenced you to read and write, please?
So my dad was Professor Pillay. He was based at the University of Durban Westport and then later at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And he was instrumental in my creative side, as well as my mother, Shamila Naidu, who was a Bharatanatyam dancer. And both of them, cultivated this appreciation for the arts, especially for the classical arts, but also for all different types of cultures and people of different backgrounds and different faiths. And I think that universal approach to my upbringing really helped, to me good. It helped with my views and how I don't have a secular approach to things, and so that's why even in my books I take a very wide approach. I hope that many people can resonate with what I'm writing. He of course would tell me stories at bedtime just from make them up on the spot, and he had different characters, and I really appreciate that because it's not only a parent taking the time to spend with their child and showing that love and dedication in a different kind of way, but it also taught me about the creative spirit and spontaneity and improvisation within art, which I feel is sometimes very critical and often lost in our art forms.
That was such a comprehensive response. So, what would be your advice for very young mothers today in South Africa?
I'm not yet a young mother, but I have I have taken care of my nieces and nephews, and I'm very grateful for that. I know that it can be difficult because taking care of a child is not easy, especially if you're a single mother. But I think for young parents, not just young mothers even, it's important to start introducing and exposing your child to the arts. The arts is fundamental. You can expose them to science as well and mathematics, which is also great, but the arts encompasses everything, and it teaches them about empathy, it teaches them how to connect to themselves. So reading to your children, exposing them to music that is classical, but also different, and from different cultures and different backgrounds is important. And I think that it comes, if you know who you are as an individual, you can pass that down to your child without being overbearing, but rather sharing with your child who you are, your vulnerabilities, your strengths, and having that environment of openness and authenticity with your children.
Ah, that's fantastic. Devian, do you have anything to contribute to this conversation on reading?
Yeah, in the line of work that I'm in, I've noticed that there's a number of students, young and old, that do not have access to eye care services. And that could be also a reason as to why they have difficulties opening a book. They have even difficulties in school dealing with the situation of they're unable to see properly. In screening events that I've been to, where we screened learners at various schools, pupils up at the stage of maybe grade 12 couldn't see. And it's amazing that they reached to that grade with the teachers not even identifying that. It could be for various reasons. And sadly, students also have the idea that, and also students have the idea that, wearing spectacles is, a bit like they feel a bit ashamed of it. So we need to also put off the stigma attached to wearing spectacles. So I think that we need to develop something that there should be maybe like a universal chart that can be placed in a schoolroom, in a classroom, and the students can actually look at that chart, and if they're able to view that chart, be able to identify that I have a problem and I need to see an optometrist, I want to get eye care services, and then I think you can link up well with actually helping reading.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your response and take great care.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.